Hi, my name's Kathy Myatt, and I head up the Better Planet theme for the Now or Never strategy in group sustainability. Welcome to our second webinar looking at the energy crisis. In this webinar, Jono and I are going to update you on the energy crisis and what that means for Willmott Dixon. As part of that, I'll be interviewing Planet First, our energy brokers, as well as colleagues from across the business. But before we get started, we've all seen the energy price rises in the news, and we know that it's important to reduce our energy use. That's not only for our own finances, but also because it affects the profitability of our business. But I just wanted to remind everyone that we're also in a climate crisis, and being energy efficient is also a key part of our now or never ambition to become a zero carbon company without offsetting. If we all change the way we work to reduce our energy use, that means less carbon emissions. And it means as a company, we're doing our bit to address the climate crisis. Today, we'll talk about our electricity use and how we can reduce it. But our zero carbon ambition is also about other things, including cutting the use of our fossil fuels, such as diesel, reducing our mileage, and achieving a fully electric fleet, and also getting our own offices to net zero carbon in operation. But coming back to today, I'm now going to hand you over to Jono to talk you through the latest on the energy crisis.
Thanks, Kathy. Hello, everyone. I'm Jono Aiton, part of the group sustainability team. So today I will cover the latest on the recent electricity prices and what the government is doing. I will cover how this is impacting Willmott Dixon and the steps we can do to reduce usage. Then I'll look at what you can do to help, and then an update on electric charge points. But before we start, I just wanted to pause a little and think about why this is important to us. And the first point is costs. As you probably know from your home energy bills and the prices at the petrol station forecourts, energy costs are rising massively. We're all feeling it, and it's also the case for Willmott Dixon. There was a lot of volatility in the energy market, with prices changing really rapidly. So clearly there is a big impact on our bottom line for our projects, and we all need to be more energy efficient and think carefully about the energy we use. So firstly, to give some background, I wanted to share with you the graph of this year's energy market prices since January 2022. The orange line displays electricity prices, and the blue line represents gas prices, with the axes showing the cost per kilowatt. So the price of electricity is controlled by the price of gas, which explains the symmetry of both lines, and I'll explain that in more detail shortly. But firstly, looking at the graph, the first spike you see on the left-hand side was caused by the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Prices then stabilised and briefly dropped, but then they have gradually risen and peaked in September at over £1 per kilowatt hour. Since then, prices have dropped, linking to the energy relief package the government have announced and now implemented, which we'll discuss shortly. Firstly, why are electricity costs so high, and what has caused these spikes? As we discussed in our previous webinar, a series of events have led to electricity costs reaching record levels, mostly stemming from the pandemic, unfortunately. Looking globally, we've had prolonged cold winters, which has depleted the gas storages in Europe. There has been a high demand for liquefied natural gas from Asia, which has outcompeted European demand, unfortunately leading to lower LNG shipments to us. Russia has completely closed Nord Stream 1 pipeline, and the number 2 pipeline has been postponed and I think recently hit by technical malfunctions, both of which kind of provide the heart of gas to Europe, and all of this is obviously causing prices to rise in Europe. But why are UK prices still rising, or still high, seeing as we left the EU and barely rely on Russian gas? Surprisingly, for our windy island, we've had very low wind output this year, coupled with outages at some nuclear power stations. This has meant that a higher percentage of our electricity generation has been from gas. Another fire at a key interconnector in Kent has knocked out the power cable providing electricity from Europe. UK also has some of the lowest gas reserves in Europe, stemming from our gas on demand production model. We usually top up our gas production with imports from Europe when required. Historically, gas has always been cheaper to purchase on demand rather than invest in expensive domestic storage infrastructure. Less UK government support, although they have offered 15 billion in support packages this winter. It's not going to have as big impact on us as other European countries like France. And then lastly, as you'll remember, we had about 28 energy suppliers go bust, which has meant prices have risen for all of us to help absorb those costs. So as I briefly touched on, the price of electricity is directly tied to the cost of gas, which is partially tied to the cost of oil and massively influenced by the global market. So hence the rapid price increase across the board. So delving into this a little further to understand why the price of electricity is linked to gas, and why if you're on a green deal that offers 100% renewable energy, you might be wondering why your prices are shooting up even though no gas is being used to generate it. So this is all because of how the UK energy system is set up. We use a system called marginal cost pricing. In short, this means that the most expensive type of energy is used to set the price for all other types of energy, including renewable. So even if you're on a plan that delivers 100% renewable energy, the price of your electricity is set based on the cost of the last source of energy used to meet the UK demand. Sounds a bit bonkers. Well, it used to make sense. So think of it like a ranking order of preference. Imagine at the start of the day, the UK energy system decides, what type of generation should we select first to power the UK? And in this system, renewables are always chosen first, as they are the cheapest to run. And that's great for reducing emissions. Then nuclear is chosen, then coal, then gas, and lastly, oil powered generation. So if we link it to a football analogy, imagine a penalty shootout between England and Germany. We will select our list of players by order of preference, with the best selected first, i.e. renewable. But as the shootout drags on and we come to the fifth player, it's down for them to decide the whole fate of the game. So the issue at the moment is that our market is in turmoil, and not only is renewable production lower than normal, but the costs are so high, everything else is being driven up. Now, the good news is that the government has literally just announced that renewable and nuclear power is to be moved off the marginal cost pricing system. So hopefully in time, we should see the benefits of that. So I'm now going to hand back to Kathy, and we would like to welcome Sam Matthews from Planet First, who is going to discuss what else the government is doing to support us.
Thanks, Sam, and welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. Perhaps you could just start with quickly introducing yourself and telling us about your role at Willmott Dixon.
Of course. Good afternoon all. My name is Sam Matthews. I'm the Senior Account Manager at Planet First Energy. We've partnered with Willmott Dixon for many years. We're your energy consultancy, so we assist with the metering, all your energy procurement, bill validation, query management and reporting. So if you have any questions about utilities, please feel free to contact me.
Excellent. Well, let's get on with some questions. I think we've all seen in the news about the energy price rises at the moment, and it would be good to find out more about what that means for domestic users for the energy we use at home. Could you tell us a bit more about what the government's doing about prices for us at home?
Yes, of course. So the government have recently announced an energy price guarantee. So this is for domestic users. It almost impacts as a price cap. As you can see, the price cap for electricity is going to be around about 34 pence a kilowatt hour, and for gas around about 10 pence a kilowatt hour. At the moment, it is set on a scheme to last for 2 years, and there's some additional support as well. You may have heard about the £400 over the next 6 months, which can be automatically applied to your invoices.
It's helpful. It's still quite expensive. I know, I'm aware of that. Have you got any advice for people at home?
Yes, of course. So there's not a huge amount of to really gain from potentially switching suppliers. Unfortunately, the energy switching is now at an all-time low. Ultimately, it's just in regard to avoiding any kind of wastage and doing what you can do to reduce your consumption at home. So energy monitors, managing your invoices, taking regular meter reads. The advice that I'm sure you're seeing a lot of at the moment, just continue to be really conscious about what you are using and where possible to reduce consumption.
That's great, thank you. And I think we wanted to just chat with you as well a bit more about businesses, because the energy price rises are also affecting us all as a business and us at Willmott Dixon. And we're aware that the government's recently introduced some new assistance for businesses that's coming in. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Of course, yeah. So this energy price guarantee is also now impacting on the business side of the business. There'd never previously been an energy cap for commercial, but now effectively there is with this energy price guarantee. It is going to be lasting for 6 months, although the government have advised that they will review it after 3. And if your sector is eligible, they may well extend this. Currently, they've set 2 types of assistance via this price cap. So the first one is to cap the actual commodity cost for any contracted supplies. So any supplies contracted from April 22 will be subject to a commodity cap, which is £211 or around about 21 pence a kilowatt hour for electricity. And it's around about 7 pence for gas. The other aspect as well is they're offering a maximum discount for any suppliers or any clients who are currently using different forms of procurement. So whether that be flexible procurement, if they're on a deemed contract rate, or equally if they've got a key meter as well. So there's a maximum discount on offer. It's around about 34 pence for electricity, and it's around about 15p for gas. So there is some assistance there. In terms of what it means for Willmott Dixon, we're anticipating that your delivered costs, or what you're going to see on your invoices, is going to be approximately 40 to 45p for electricity and around about 15 to 18p for gas. This is going to be in place, as I said, for the next 6 months. So from April 22, it's highly likely these charges will increase again in line with what's going on with the energy market. And the raw cost of energy is still particularly high. So just bear in mind, it is only a short-term relief, but it's certainly going to help out during this difficult winter period.
But from what you're saying, it seems likely that in April, if our sites are on contracts, they'll go back to the previous contracted rate come April, unless we get any further help through from government. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
And I think, Sam, you mentioned a couple of numbers there. You mentioned that there was a 21 pence for electricity, but that we'll be paying 40p. Well, why is there a difference between those two numbers?
Yes, of course. So when the government announced the energy price review, they used these figures of £211, around about 21p. You have to know that is only the raw commodity. So your delivered cost is made up of 2 elements. It's the raw commodity, and there's what's called your non-commodity. So that's all your pass-through charges, government levies, taxes, transmission charges. It differs depending on every single site. So exactly whereabouts the site is located, the type of metering. But if you take approximately 20p at the moment for that non-commodity element, this is why we're talking about a delivered cost for electricity, or around about that 40 to 45 pence mark.
Okay, so there's numbers on the screen. That's what the sites will be seeing on their invoices for the next 6 months.
Indeed, yes. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people though who are going to be a little bit confused of why they're not paying 21p from October. Yeah. I think it's just mixed messages from the government and news sources as well.
But I think also I've heard that the energy companies might not necessarily be ready on the 1st of October to roll these prices out. Might we expect some disruption for the next month or so?
Yes, that's very possible. The government announcements, unfortunately, didn't consult with a lot of the suppliers at the time and give them only a month to make these quite drastic changes to their billing and their invoicing. Is not quite enough time. So if you don't see this government relief on your October invoice, don't panic. Suppliers will have to implement this. It may be a little bit delayed, but we should certainly see it from your November invoice at the very, very latest.
Oh, thank you. That's helpful. And I guess just to wrap up, Sam, it'd be helpful to know a bit more about how you're working with Willmott Dixon through this period of quite a lot of turbulence in the markets. What are you doing to assist us?
Of course, as I mentioned, so we worked with Willmott Dixon for many years. We're here to assist with any questions about utilities and metering, new connections, anything like that. We're consistently checking the market. We monitor the market every single day. Where possible, we secure you the absolute best rates available. And of course, we'll continue to give you the live news when it comes to this government assistance and what it does mean for you as a business. As I mentioned previously, if you do have any questions about utilities for any projects, by all means, get in contact and I should be able to assist.
Thank you. And I know you're sitting on a price group, aren't you, with some of our people in finance, just keeping an eye on it generally across the business.
Absolutely, yeah. Just to ensure that the contracts we are securing for Willmott Dixon are the very best, whether they're one particular supplier or we are looking across the market as well. But at the moment, all suppliers have pretty high pricing. It's just how we're looking with energy crisis.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that update, Sam. That's been really helpful. I think we're now going to hand back to Jono, who's going to look in a bit more detail at what the costs mean to us for this year and running into next year. But thanks very much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Great to see and hear that there's some financial support for people at home and businesses. I now want to look at the impact of the costs on Willmott Dixon. So we have modelled the financial impact on the business for 2022 compared to 2021 costs. And as you can see from the graph, our actual and predicted costs for 2022 in orange have already doubled. Office electricity, fortunately, most of our offices are protected by existing fixed rate contracts or are owned by our landlords. So we haven't yet seen a big spike there compared to the spike in electricity. Note that without government intervention, that orange bar for site electricity and even gas would be considerably higher. So diesel has actually reduced from 2021 as we've transitioned to hydro-treated vegetable oil, HVO, which offers 90% reduction in carbon emissions, which is great for our carbon footprint. Gas is quite project situational, and we haven't seen a lot of use this year, again, which is good. And lastly, you can also see the impact that the oil prices, which have constantly fluctuated this year, have had on our TMC reimbursement costs for our people driving petrol and diesel vehicles on business and commute mileage. So as you can see, the increase in energy costs is having a direct impact on our business. I will now hand back to Kathy, who will introduce Tom Jenkinson from Central South to discuss what impacts these costs are having.
Hi, Tom. Could you start off maybe by introducing yourself to everyone on the call?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Jono. I'm Tom Jenkinson. I'm the Commercial Director of our Central South local office.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for coming. We just wanted to ask you a few questions about the energy prices and the impact on the business. And I think in your position as a commercial director, could you tell us how the recent rise in energy prices is impacting you and your budget decisions?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on. I mean, this is a real hot topic for us and our business, our whole business, and certainly for our office. And unusually for us, it's an issue that our people in our office can relate to. You know, we're all seeing our energy prices rising at home, and we're having exactly the same effect in our business. So everyone can relate to this, and it's now actually become what I would call material. So it's become a big issue. It's actually having an effect on our profit. It's actually having an effect on our projects and how we run our business. I mean, so much so that we certainly can't ignore it or disregard it. And certainly in our budget, I mean, I was shocked to find out that our energy costs just at local level at Central South have increased by 341% since 2021. That's 341%. And I was shocked also to learn that 41% of our total energy use is out of hours, particularly on sites. So there's just two facts for you, which really drive it home that we need to take action. In terms of our budget decisions, our office is relatively small. We have a very collaborative landlord. He's very committed, or they're very committed to providing us what we call a green lease. They have long-term agreements, which we're seeing the benefit of. Very committed to efficient lighting, renewable energy, such as the installation of solar PVs and electric charging points. So very collaborative, very progressive landlord. And to that extent, our overhead isn't particularly affected, although you know there's still a increase in costs, and the trend doesn't appear to be changing anytime soon. So got to keep an eye on our overhead costs and take steps, but we're very lucky with our landlord in the office. But our main focus at Central South really has turned to our sites and how we spend or how much we spend on energy costs at our project site level.
Oh, that's helpful. And there's some stark figures there, which I think really gives pause for thought, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So talking about your sites then, have you got any advice for projects about how they could help reduce their energy bills?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think you know what we're looking for is there's obviously some simple, straightforward, obvious things that we can do differently as individuals and as a business. Turning things off at the end of the day, making sure that we switch things off over the weekend. Consider the kind of actions we take at home. You know, most of us are waiting a bit longer before we put the heating on. Making sure we dress for the weather. And turning off things when they're not needed and not leaving things on standby. We're also asking our services team rather to work with you guys up at the sustainability team to help develop the tools that our people can use and utilize the intelligence that's available to us, and the tools such as power planning, to make sure that we get our tender allowances right on site, and then operate our sites in the most efficient way we can.
Yeah, that's useful. And it's interesting you refer to group sustainability, because we've got an energy manager. His name's Orestes, and he's out helping some sites. So again, I think if people are sort of unsure about their energy costs, then he's always a resource that can help people. And have you got any particular examples from Central South of actions you've taken to try and reduce the impact of the energy crisis?
Yeah, I mean, we utilise our Yammer channel continually to raise awareness of the issue, and to drive it home how important it is that we take a sort of personal responsibility for this. We're using sub-meters on all of our sites. Energy monitoring systems are commonplace now across all of our projects. Working with you guys and the rest is and through the services team to ensure that the cabins are zoned correctly. We're also that statistic about the out of hours usage. We're also working, I think, with you guys to try and work out where that's a particular problem and why that might be. Because if we're going to eliminate unnecessary energy use and drive down that 41%, that'll make a big difference to us. So getting that site-specific data and actually looking at a site in on its own to understand why it's using out of hours energy is really important. The biggest step for us and the biggest step for me at Central South is really, our profitability. So we've got our own profit strategy, Destination 5%, which is our response to Giant Leap and getting to 5% profit by 2025. And that has at its heart a belief that everyone and every team in our business can play a part in the profitability of the business. And this is one aspect of something that people really can play a personal part in. We've got great people in our business, people who really care about the company and care about the company's money and treat the money like their own. So, I've got great confidence that, all of our people in our business and across Willmott Dixon will really take personal responsibility and help us as a company drive down our energy costs and try to reduce the impact of this crisis as much as we possibly can.
Oh, thank you. I think it's really great to hear your perspective and just different thoughts about how it affects sort of different aspects across the business, and some really stark figures there, which have certainly given us all a wake-up call. So thanks very much for your time, Tom. We're going to hand back to Jono now, who's going to give us a bit more info. Thanks, Jono.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom and Kathy. So, delving further into interventions to reduce electricity usage, I wanted to share some of the analysis we've been doing to help project teams focus on what and how to reduce their electricity usage. So, using electricity data from our live projects, we have analysed the average electricity usage between working hours in green and out of hours usage in orange. On average, 41% of our total electricity usage is being used in out of hours. To give you a further example of this, here is a heat map from one of our projects earlier in the year. This is a heat map of half-hourly electricity data, with days of the year running down the left-hand side and starting at 12 o'clock in the morning at the top left-hand side, going through the day along the top to the right. This shows a good trend, highlighting lower energy use during out of hours on the left and right-hand side of the graphs in the green-yellow, with higher amounts of energy being used in the day in red, as we would expect. You can also clearly see less energy being used during the weekends. And we are producing these graphs for every project where possible to try and provide live data to our projects. Please do get in touch with me or Group Sustainability or your local M&E team if you want to know more. Now I'm going to hand back to Kathy, who's going to discuss energy usage with Nick Corrigan.
Hello, Nick. Thanks for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself to everyone?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Corrigan. I'm the Director for Delivery based in the Gateshead office.
Excellent. Thank you. And Nick, we just wanted to ask you a few questions about energy efficiency. Could you maybe make a start by letting us know what do you think our projects should be thinking about to cut energy costs?
Interesting question and clearly very pertinent. So thinking about projects which are in pre-construction at the moment, clearly the number one priority for us is getting a TVS and getting that organised, and we've actually took kind calculated sort of risks on that in terms of procuring that early to ensure that we are putting the TBSs in place when we hit site, rather than waiting until maybe, I don't know, 4 weeks out from the start of a project. So procuring those early engagement with statutory authorities to ensure that we hit the ground running is key. In addition to that, what we need to be doing is carefully planning and considering what we're going to do in terms of the layout of the cabins, procuring the right cabins, having the right temporary electrics installation, so that we can do things that we do talk about a lot and we don't always get it right, unfortunately, things like the shut-off switches and the zoning, which are key to run an efficient site setup. So yeah, that'd be the key things for the projects in pre-con. For the live projects, it's a bit of a judgment call there, I would say, in terms of how long's left on the project. But say, I don't know, for example, if you've got 6 months left on the project and that's over the next heating season, it'd be worth reviewing your site setup. There is a site cabin checklist which you could run, which will point you in the areas of where you could get the biggest bang for your buck in terms of making some of those changes. So an example of that might be within your drying room, you may be using heaters rather than a dehumidifier, which, as we know, the heaters are the biggest energy source in the cabins that we run for our temporary accommodation, and they're not really very effective. The new cabins actually have dehumidifiers as standard. So taking out those heaters and running dehumidifiers will in turn have an effect on how much energy you consume. So it's just looking at the pros and cons of what you can do within the timescales that you've got left on site, but then also looking at the behaviours of people. So we'll do it at home, but sometimes not as vigilant on things in the workplace. So leaving monitors on, leaving things plugged in, leaving lights on in room if they aren't zoned and on PIRs, let's say. So just I don't know, bit of housekeeping around behaviours, making people aware as well, so that the full team are aware this is what's actually going to be the impact over the next 6 months on this project due to the increase in energy costs. So that'll engage the minds, and if you can engage the hearts as well, then I would hope you'd make some inroads.
Yeah, that's some good advice there, Eric. Do you think, have you got any, we know this is hitting everyone at the moment, have you got some good examples in the north of things that you've actually managed to make a change?
I think, well, I've given you a couple of things there already in terms of that awareness. That's really the key thing for the live projects, because there's so much out there and so much going on the live projects, and I get everyone can't know everything, but I think if a couple of the people, the project lead, the surveyors on the project, are aware, I think that really does set that ball rolling in terms of trying to reduce the energy costs. I think that's a key thing. So we have made people aware. Certainly at a board level, I've personally made people aware as well. So when we saw what the figures could be potentially this year across the whole of the business, it was eye-watering. Now, thankfully, that's coming down a little bit, but it's still fairly eye-watering. And if it was to be straight directly out of your pocket, which in fact it actually is, because it's going to affect the profitability of the business, then I would hope people would do something about it. And I think that's really been the key, together with the work we've done with our services managers and your team in terms of preparing for going to site, procuring the TBSs, monitoring the procurement of the TBSs, getting the checks in place in time. So we've got a good group of people throughout pre-con and operationally, which are doing as much as doing a lot of good things, but clearly there's sometimes things don't go to plan, so we need to be aware of that and maybe back solve a few times as well. But yeah, there's a lot of good things going on, but communication and preparation are probably the two key things.
Yeah, thank you. And you've talked quite a lot about hearts and minds in that. So I'd like to ask you, I guess, why do you think we should reduce our energy costs? What does it mean to you?
Well, historically, we've had a challenge engaging everyone's hearts and minds around some of these issues, be it carbon and what it's doing to the environment. But yeah, if you're on the bus because of the carbon agenda and the impact it's having on the climate, then clearly this just supports your journey. The fact it's now actually hitting our profitability as an organisation and ultimately will affect our profit share over the next few months as well, then I would hope that covers everyone. So yeah, it's something which is clearly affecting us all, be it at home or be it at work. We need to be aware and we need to do things about it. Now, the thing we then therefore need to do on top of that is continue with those good behaviours as well. So it's all well and good reacting to a problem, but if this is the right thing to do, let's well, thinking ahead, how do we ensure this is actually embedded and we continue to do it just because it's the right thing to do?
Yeah, thanks very much, Nick, and thanks for your time. I think we're going to hand back to Jono now, who's going to give us a bit more information about EV charge points.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick and Kathy. So to finish, I'd like to briefly discuss electric vehicle charge points. Our aim is that all sites and offices will have charge points. This is to help top up people's batteries to get them home, when the majority of charging should be done, and yes, usually at a lower rate if you are signed up to companies like Octopus, who offer a specific EV tariff overnight. So once a project gets its charge point commissioned on site, it will appear on our group app, as in the picture. This allows us to set a group-wide tariff so that every person pays the same charging rate across the country. The reimbursement tariff is set by group sustainability monthly and is calculated from the average electricity costs across all our live Willmott Dixon projects. So the rate in October is now at 40 pence per kilowatt hour, which ties in with the business tariff Sam mentioned earlier. I expect that rate is still more expensive than what some of you pay at home, but because businesses aren't protected as much by the price cap, and because they're not protected as much. However, you will have seen from Graham Burr's latest mileage reimbursement rate email, we've increased the electric mileage rate to 10 pence per mile, up from the HMRC rate of 5p, to further support our people at this time. Again, I would reiterate, we still need to offer people charge points at our projects so that they can charge their vehicles, helping to ease any mileage anxiety you may have, and also to support those who can't easily charge at home. So there is guidance available on the Hub Modem Yellow Book for how to procure and install charge points and get them commissioned by our mandatory provider, Rolec. So thank you very much for watching. We hope you found it useful. Please do get in touch with us if you'd like to find out more. Goodbye.